I'm Jesse McAnally.
And I'm Andrew DeWolf.
And I'm Brianna Jones.
And welcome to Musicals with Cheese, a podcast where I try to get Andrew and Brie to like musical theater. And today we have an extra super special guest.
A very special guest.
Super duper special. Welcome this week, our very special guest. It's actor, writer, comedian, and all-around awesome human being, Maggie Mae Fish. Applause. Applause.
Applause. Don't stop. No, keep going. This is great.
Maggie, thank you for joining us.
Too much. Cut it out. No, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited.
Awesome. And I don't even want to waste time. You decided what we're talking about today. So I'm going to let you introduce it. What are we talking about today?
Ooh, okay. So I picked this very specially because of my mother, who loves The Wizard of Oz. It is her movie. I remember being a young child watching the film, and my mom watching with rapt attention, watching me watch the film, and just this is the first time anyone saw color, and telling me the backstory of all the actors and and all the backstage lore. And it was the first time someone showed me a movie, talked throughout the movie, and talked about how the movie was made. And my mom has just had a lifelong love of this film. One of her ongoing jokes that started when we were very young is, we'd be watching Lord of the Rings, and when they're, hiding behind a spire at Mordor, and she's like, they copied that from The Wizard of Oz.
Really, it all goes back to The Wizard of Oz if you just look at it deep enough.
But the funny thing is that most of the time she is actually correct,
yes,
because it's such a seminal film that, when filmmakers allude to it, they're doing it on purpose. But yes, so thank you, Mom, for instilling me a healthy love of Wizard of Oz.
That's wonderful. We're talking about The Wizard of Oz. It's going to be a lot of fun, and it's going to be nostalgic for everyone. I'm so excited to chat this. But right now, Brie, cue the music.
Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, there's a land that I heard of once in a lullaby.
So The Wizard of Oz is a movie musical with music by Harold Arlen and lyrics by Yip Harburg, based on L. Frank Baum's The Wizard of Oz. It is directed by five-ish people, technically, but the main credited director is Victor Fleming. It premiered at the Strand Theater in Wisconsin on August 12th, 1939. It was a critical success when it was released, but basically a financial failure. It won a couple Academy Awards, but mostly people just remember the Special Academy Award to Judy Garland and the Best Original Song to Over the Rainbow. And the plot is basically when a tornado rips through Kansas, Dorothy and her dog Toto are whisked away to a wonderful world of Oz, and she meets a bunch of funny characters walking down the Yellow Brick Road to the Emerald City.
Everybody knows the plot.
Everyone knows the plot of The Wizard of Oz. We have covered Oz adjacent
Even if
stuff.
you've never seen it, you already know the plot to Wizard of Oz.
Mm-hmm. That's very true.
So, Maggie, you've recommended this. You have a history with it. The fascinating thing is Andrew has never seen this movie before we made him do this.
Whoa!
Now I've seen it, but
Now you've seen it. Whoa! I will be so curious to hear your thoughts on it.
I had seen Return to Oz before I left this one.
And The Wiz.
I love Return to Oz. Oh, and The Wiz. Yep.
Oh yeah, I did see The Wiz as well. The Wiz was also really good. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of really good Wizard of Oz adaptations for some reason. Mm-hmm. I guess it's just a very easy to adapt property or something.
Yeah, and actually the original writer was very political when he wrote it, which is funny because, you watch this movie and you're like, okay, Alice in Wonderland, okay, there's no, But yeah, the actual author of it was very political, so I think a lot of the later adaptations lean into that. Return to Oz is much more political than the first one.
It's very dark, too.
Yeah, very dark. And then, later adaptations like the book that Wicked is based off is also very political, very dark, and very gross. It's birthed so many different pieces of art from this. Yeah.
But the thing is,
I think they changed
always
the tone
because
they can't match it.
Everyone always just takes from the first book. Like, they don't
It's
talk about the
true.
Ozma of Oz, where a boy named Tip discovers he's really a woman named Ozma, and then becomes Ozma, and then falls in love with Dorothy. No one ever adapts that part.
No, which would be interesting. You know, that time is ripe.
It's something to do in the future.
But
I want to see it. Let's see it, Disney.
the
somebody
fascinating
else, who
thing
knows?
that Andrew texted me while watching it was, he's like, for a film nearly 100 years old, there's no racism. There's nothing that makes you go icky. There's no effects that don't quite stand up, and the ones that do are
At least
part
no
of the
blatant
charm.
racism. I feel like I'm missing something. There's got to be something racist in there, but I don't know.
Yeah, there's a heaping helping of ableism, especially
Yes.
like. And the treatment on set, like, whew, but
Yes.
yeah, you're very right. There are many pitfalls that it avoids, which is rare when you
For
when you go
something
back this
released
far.
in 1939, that's more than you can say for movies released like 10 years ago.
Or like 3 years ago. Can't even watch Baby Driver anymore.
my
Oh
God.
yeah, oh yeah.
But, so how old were you when you first watched it, Maggie?
Oh boy, probably 4 to 5 years old, very young. But yeah, and then watched it many times throughout
Right,
my life
right.
again, thanks to my mother. But yeah, that was probably the first meeting was 4 or 5.
Same with me. Like, I pulled the old VHS out and just wore it out and like looked up everything about how they made it, how they did the tornado effect. I was like real like into the nuts and bolts of filmmaking at the time. So I was like, how did they turn that and do this, and who is the actor who played the Scarecrow and all that? That was like my big diving into it. And it is a seminal film for a lot of people, like even of our generation. I'm wondering if like the generation younger than us have that too, or if it's like, we're the last ones.
Or the last one. It is interesting. My partner's about 10 years older than me. And when they saw it, they had none of the like backstory, you know, so they kind of were just like, okay, great, like kids movie, like I guess understood like within the film context of like why this movie was important. But it is interesting that like 10 years later, like my mom is like, here are all the facts, and you know, here's all the things about Judy Garland, and it was like it became a lot more I guess like solid of, you know, here are the things that we know about the Wizard of Oz that, you know, that we talk about today from its production, that yeah, just kind of solidified over those years. Yeah.
And a lot of things like that are strictly movie only have become rote within the Wizard of Oz mythos. You can't make a Wizard of Oz movie without ruby slippers. Not silver, they have to be ruby. And the Wicked Witch of the West has to be that shade of green now, because that was what she always was. She was never really green in the books. That was something like added for the movie, really. So there are specific things. But it still holds up. It's the strangest thing. Like, not an ounce of this film is like cringy. Like, Citizen Kane aged worse than this film, I will say that. And then there's the other question I want to bring up that I've been in an argument with my friend Emily Clark about, whether or not this is a musical.
That is a great question. Because I remember the email. I think you were actually the one that suggested this, and I was like, "Yeah, is it a musical?" Like when I think of it, I honestly don't think of the songs besides, of course, you know, Somewhere Over the Rainbow. You know, and a couple tunes when they're walking, but it's usually in transit when they're singing.
There's a lot of songs though, and you can't really take them out. It's not,
that's true.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's not a movie without the songs, and yet, like, compared to other musicals, the songs do less heavy lifting. They do a lot of character work, and not necessarily plot work.
But I think it has just as much, like, Many a New Day has just as much to do in Oklahoma as, say, like, If I Only Had a Brain does. Like, it's just stating my purpose and what I want. This is basically all about I want songs, as opposed to something like Singing in the Rain, where it's like, gotta dance, and we dance for 25 minutes. There are elements of this that feel more musical storytelling than the quote-unquote first musical, Oklahoma, which was like 30-ish years later. So it's been a constant debate where I'm like, no, this is the first musical, and Emily's like, no, it's Oklahoma, Rodgers and Hammerstein.
No, yeah.
Well, you could argue it's not a musical just by virtue of the medium. It's not a stage show, right?
I mean, you can argue that, but I'm saying the way that the songs function within this movie is the same way songs function in musicals to this day.
Okay.
And just like, okay,
I don't know.
but
I'm on both. I'm on the fence on this one.
one.
I think that there's a lot of arguments about what the first musical is, and I don't know if any of them are accurate.
I mean, you're a believer like
Because-
opera and all that still counts as musicals.
I mean,
Gilbert.
operetta is basically just music theater, but in a different language a lot of times. I mean, do we not count it just because it's Italian? I mean,
I will not stand for any anti-Italian.
yeah, anti-Italian. This is a little bit. It's a little iffy, a little problematic, if you ask me.
But Maggie, you'll probably know, but I say this is more of a musical than something like Cats.
That is true. I will back that up. This, at least, the songs like bring you to each new set piece. Which is basically, this movie is like a bunch, it's a traveling movie. So you're traveling to the different set pieces, it's the Yellow Brick Road, it's, the Oz Town. And each song does bring you to the next place. So in that regard, it is kind of, like a journey musical in a sense.
I'd watch a
road
road
musical.
musical. I mean,
A road musical. This was the first road musical, and you can put that on the books.
Did you rewatch this before recording this, like recently?
I did. I had recently watched it with the Dark Side of the Moon soundtrack.
Just smoked a
over
doob
it.
and just like,
Smoked it.
let me go.
It's actually funny because I do have a memory of, this is probably when I was 7, but I do have a memory of my parents and their close neighbor friends on New Year's doing this, when I was a kid, when I was still going to bed at like 9 o'clock on New Year's because I was just, whatever. But I do have a memory of them doing this and me coming in and being like, what are you doing? Why are you playing music over a movie? So, and then years later, there I was smoking a doobie and doing the same thing that my parents were doing. Time. It's cyclical.
I mean, this is becoming a tradition still. Like, it is developing and changing with the generations. Like, your parents' generation was like the Pink Floyd, like, oh, if you sync it up, and our generation is more reevaluating and looking at it the film way and like how film treatment, like how actors should and shouldn't be treated on film. As well, it is become kind of myth. Like Judy Garland, despite like having roots today, Liza Minnelli and all of them still hanging around and telling stories, is a mythical figure more or less here, and just because of this movie in a lot of ways, like no one really feels this way about her other vaudevillian films the way they do about The Wizard of Oz.
Absolutely. And also with Judy being, like a queer icon, like this is one of the seminal works of absolute over the rain, there's so many things that has such a different relevance to us now that stem from this movie in particular, especially, with Judy. Yeah.
But do you want to talk about production? I feel like you and I are going to nerd out about that for a bit, and I feel like Andrew will learn a bunch of stuff
I'm interested.
from that.
You
That
said something about
sounds great.
5 directors. I mean, that's
Okay.
that's a lot of cooks in the kitchen.
Well, none of them were at the kitchen at the same time, more or less. Because we start with Richard Thorpe, who was the OG, and he was the one that nearly killed Buddy Epson and gave Judy Garland that terrible wig.
Mistakes were made.
Yeah, but thank God for that. Like, Buddy Epson was cast as the Scarecrow originally. Then Ray Bolger was cast as the Tin Man. He's like, I ain't playing no Tin Man. I want to be that Scarecrow. And Buddy Epson's like, whatever, I don't care. I just want to be in the movie. And then he's signed his own death warrant, basically. He gets all this aluminum powder in his face, inhales it into his lungs, nearly dies. They're like, we're just going to quietly replace you. But after they shut down production for 2 weeks, they look at the footage and they're like, this is bad. This movie bad. We got fired.
So they almost killed him with aluminum powder, and then they're just like, yeah, we're just gonna get rid of you.
Well, he's in the hospital because that is not a thing that you can really get over in like a month or so.
Did he die?
No, he lived probably longer than anyone else, but he almost died at a very young age. And for that, they shut down, but the producers finally got to watch all the dailies and see what was being shot, and they didn't like it. So they fired him, and they were looking for a director, and who took over the pre-production duty was a man named George Cukor, who basically like looked at everything and was like, all right, we got to get rid of that stupid wig. We're gonna give her pigtails, take off all that makeup, make her look like a normal girl. She's a girl from Kansas. Never forget that.
Yeah, she's a girl from Kansas. Right, let's take it. This is
So
my impression.
what did the wig look like? What is the wig?
Bree, why don't you look up what that wig looks like? Let's take a look at that. It's not the worst looking thing in the world. It's just not the character. It looks too adult. She looks about 10 years older than she really was, and she still looks pretty old for her age at the time.
Yeah.
So we got these boys.
Oh my
here.
goodness.
She had like this bright blonde wig, and it didn't makes her look so much older. Her dress is so much uglier, like, and they have the original wig somewhere on display. And that was the original shoot of that. And let's see if I can show you Buddy Ebsen's original original makeup, because his makeup looked terrible as well. It's a godsend that he didn't get the role because he was nightmare fuel.
Oh no. Oh no.
Yes.
It was a bad move, and I don't want to see that in my kid's movie.
Oh no, that's not a good look.
Yeah, so that is one of the ways that could have ruined this being a classic. That director with those choices coming in. And then George Cukor makes all those choices, like, we're getting rid of that, we're hiring Jack Haley, and Jack Haley, read it like you are like a fairy tale for every line, because that's kind of how we want. And then Victor Fleming officially takes over and starts shooting. However, his buddy Clark Gable is out there shooting Gone with the Wind and is like, yo, I need my buddy Victor Fleming here. I don't care if he's shooting some kid's movie. He's coming here next week. And he's like, basically. And then Victor Fleming's like, well, I gotta go. And then King Vidor took over from there and shot all the Kansas scenes. So he shot Somewhere Over the Rainbow, The Tornado, all of that stuff. And did not admit to it until after Victor Fleming died, and did not want credit for it. He just wanted to take credit for saying, I shot Somewhere Over the Rainbow, you know?
Yeah. Well, now that he's out of the way, I guess I'll
Why would
say
he not
that.
want
Okay.
credit for it?
I mean,
Is it just because it wasn't a big success?
Well,
or?
no, because Victor Fleming was his buddy, and he didn't want to be like the guy that took.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It is funny though that after he passed, he was like, okay, so I do want to put it out there.
Yeah. I waited till he was gone for me to say this.
Right.
Well, I mean, he can't be offended by it if he's dead.
Right.
Exactly.
I just find
And
it so interesting.
It's more lore to know, and he was like, I'll give some more lore to the backdrop of Wizard of Oz.
I'll break the lore, basically. Like, he was not the genius that saved the day. But Richard Thorpe was not only just a brazen, abusive, and not that great director, by all means, he was also abusive to Judy Garland. Like, she would be caught getting a case of the giggles for a shot, and he'd just go up and slap her and say, you're not going to do that.
Oh my god.
Whereas Victor Fleming is a much nicer, calmer presence.
It is interesting that this movie, it is so connected to old Hollywood, along with all the abuses that happened on set. It really is nightmare fuel, both within the movie and outside of it.
I mean, that was like the production side I really wanted to dive into, and like how the film didn't make money on its first release. It took a bunch of re-releases for it to even make a profit. Like, I think the re-releases are part of the reason why it became so ingrained in all of us. Not because like it was this big success, but they're like, we gotta keep making money, put it out again. We got this film.
Come on,
Keep
just
putting it out.
we don't know. Yeah, just keep repackaging
You
it.
just imagine your mayor just like, Wizard of Oz, do it again.
again.
So was this actually the first color movie?
No.
I hear that. Is that actually true?
No,
No.
not even close.
No.
I
No.
that's what I thought, but people say that, but I feel like that
People
can't
do.
possibly be
That's
accurate.
one of the ones that people, and again, like I have the memory of my mom telling me that, even though it's not actually true.
Like, it's like, because why would you, if it's the first color movie, why would you film half of it in black and white?
I don't like that. There's a lot of other accomplishments in this film. Don't try to... It discredits all the other ones by making up a fake one. Like, color has existed all the way since the development of film. Like, Technicolor is relatively new, but like they were doing color on film since the Lon Chaney Phantom of the Opera silent film. Like, this isn't a new thing for them. They just used it as a storytelling method, which might be an argument. Like, they're the first ones to use it for story purposes, but...
Right. And depending on the age range, it might be the first one that you specifically saw as a young child, but yeah.
It might be just people see the black and white and they're like, what, it went into color? This must be the first time they've ever done that.
Wow. Yeah.
You can do that?
You get kids watching like a really old movie and they're like, oh, it went into color. This is the first color ever.
I might be alone in this, and Andrew, you don't really have this, but this film used to be pretty scary to me as a kid. Like, there were moments that were legitimately scary. The tornado, for one, like being separated from your family, and the idea of that was terrifying. The hologram of the Wizard of Oz scared the shit out of 4-year-old me. Like, oh my god! And
the flying monkeys. Yeah.
I know this seems nothing compared to Return to Oz, but this was scary stuff
true.
back then.
Was anyone actually scared by the witch, though?
No.
Yeah, you know what? That's interesting. And I also think that makes her kind of a really good villain, especially in the kids' movie, because you're so scared about the circumstances. Yeah, she's alone. Like, her whole goal is to get back home. She's lost. And so, yeah, with the witch being creepy and scary and obviously against Dorothy. But yeah, she's not, yeah, something about her is almost like approachable, and she kind of melts, which is a very like passive way of being defeated.
The witch was scarier in Kansas.
Yes, Madame Gulch is like
Just wanted to kill a dog.
Yeah.
Went full Cruella de Vil.
Yeah.
And I killed Sparky too.
Honestly, the goal of that character in Kansas is very sinister.
I mean, but
that is also one. Oh no, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Oh, nothing.
Literally nothing. No, it's good. One of the things that I did love as a kid, and I still love the element that all the characters in Oz are people in Kansas in her real life. So it has that really fun suspension of disbelief, but also that like small thread of connection to reality, especially when you're a kid, because it's like, yeah, you know, you have awful, you see these people like being awful in your life, and there's no real way to like deal with that. So to see Dorothy, you know, be in another world dealing with the people in her life who are kind of terrible, or you know, her friends, the grown adults who hang out with her.
I really like that. It's almost weird that they did it, but I like that they did it. That the uncle and aunt don't show up as characters in Oz.
Well,
you know?
Yeah.
Let me tell you a thing. This was something added by a very young screenwriter. I think he was like 26 at the time, who took over after like 2 failed screenwriters and added in like, all right, we're going to introduce these farm hands, and they're going to be the representations of these guys later. And the only reason why Uncle Henry and Aunt Em don't show up is because they didn't have character allegories in the book. They added in the book allegories to the farm, so there was nowhere that you could really squeeze them in.
But I like that they didn't do that, because it almost makes Oz seem like it's not what she's trying to go back to.
The fear of her being separated from her parents, would have been diminished if you saw them as, like...
It's like, oh, they're the Munchkins or something. I don't know.
No, it'd be like Aunt Em or something, like something that... Or
it's like, it would just be...
Let's talk about performances really quick, and like how they are vaudeville performances and how big they are, but still they work. I think like Judy Garland is giving like the most naturalistic performance that you can give in an MGM film, especially considering how young she was. She was like 16 at the time, like very young girl, with these like still very young actors. Like they're like early 30s, 31, 30. So they're still very young people acting in these very physically demanding roles. Like the Tin Man, he could not sit down while he's in it, and those are 14-hour days. He literally had to lay on a plank if he wanted to take a nap. The Lion had a 90-pound costume, Bert Lahr, and of course the Scarecrow had a rubber mask. It wasn't like a latex mask or anything, so anytime he sweated, all the oxygen got sucked out and he couldn't breathe. Like they were in death traps.
And they danced in those.
Yes.
Yes, they were. Next time you watch it, as you're smoking a doobie, listening to Dark Side of the Moon, just the fear physical labor that they are going through, while with huge smiles on their faces.
Yes.
It's like, whoo, oh man, whoo.
Dedication right there.
I remember like Jack Haley got interviewed like not long before he died, and they're like, "Oh, it must have been so much fun working on The Wizard of Oz." Fun? No, that was work. That was work, and it hurt like hell every day. I hated it. And I'm like, that's about right. You know what? And if you're
that's
that old,
fair.
you look back at what you were doing, waking up at 5 a.m., getting that put on there until like 6 p.m., getting 2 hours to take it off, going to sleep, and then getting up at 5 again to do it again.
But it looks like he's having fun. The movie is so good, everyone thinks he was having fun.
They really they pushed through, and it is a great performance, especially given all that. But harrowing.
It is. And I think one of the more undersung, underpraised people in this is actually the gentleman that plays the wizard. I'm trying to remember what his name is now. It's Frank something or other. But he's very good at playing like 5 different characters and making an impression on each of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's great. And also, and especially when we first meet him in his, palm reader little
Professor
hut thing.
Marvel's crazy. The existence of a Professor Marvel implies there is an existence of a Professor DC. So
that is very true. And where is he? Probably in Oz.
Uncle Henry.
Uncle Henry. But that his performance also matches Judy with like how natural he is, especially in that scene. And then to get to see him do the other characters later is really fun.
They gave all of the side characters like introductions in Kansas where they talk about what they're gonna be, except for like the Tin Man.
It was shot. They shot it and then they cut it because it was like a really weird scene. It was like supposed.
He gets the one line where he's like, "I'm gonna be a statue" or something.
It was
And
supposed to
that
be
sort of-
like after she almost gets eaten by pigs, which was a weird scene in the film where he like almost has like a heart attack or something and heart, But they were like, that's a little weird, so they just changed it to the statue line. There was a lot of near misses of almost destroying this movie in here. And there's also a lot of very smart filmmaking decisions. Like Bubsy Berkeley directed an entire dance scene for Ray Bolger to like do as the Scarecrow, and it went on for like 10 minutes and he'd bounce off the railings and like do flips and stuff. But they're like, it's a little long and we don't need this. So they cut an entirely Bubsy Berkeley directed dance scene just because the film was running a little long. They almost cut
Imagine the amount of effort the Scarecrow had to put into dancing.
Thank God we actually found that footage though. Like they found it in like the MGM vault like 40 years later, and just like, oh, here it is. Look, that's great. Compared to like they almost cut Somewhere Over the Rainbow, which means that one of the most iconic songs in all film history would have not existed and just been hidden away from like the world. And then you've got like some very dated things that they almost put in, like the jitterbug sequence, where they just literally stop and do the jitterbug.
Oh no.
What is the jitterbug even? Like, it's such a dead dance craze. I don't even know what it is.
It had a lot to do with like finger wagging. Like you would move your feet in a wacky way and move your finger. Yeah, that's literally kind of how it would turn out in the end. There's
when I think jitterbug, I think that, what is that, a Wham song where they say jitterbug?
Jitterbug.
Yeah.
They should have stopped in The Wizard of Oz and sang that.
Yeah. They still kept the line that the witch was like, "Oh, I sent the bug to slow them down" or something, and then it's just never referenced again.
But think about how terrifying that scene is, where the monkeys swoop down, literally steal Dorothy and Toto, and just drag them away. And instead of having that preemptively undercut by a giant dance number of jitterbugs, which is
really
where
cut the tension.
All right. I feel like we've gone on a rant about like the entire filmmaking process of this, like, and we haven't really talked about the content of the movie, which is strange enough because there's just so much to talk about within the behind the scenes and the world of it. But Andrew, is there anything you want to say as a first timer to this, as the Wizard of Oz virgin?
Well, I don't know. It's pretty much exactly what I expected it to be, and I kind of already knew like everything about it going in, even though I had never seen it. And I feel like almost everyone is in that boat because it's so ubiquitous. In our society. Like everything references The Wizard of Oz. There's different adaptations of it. Somewhere Over the Rainbow is just a pop song, like that's been done by a ton of people. Like I don't even know. It's
I will
really
say,
good.
one thing that surprises me, especially on rewatching, because I always forget it, is the makeover scene. Like, I never think about it, and then suddenly they're in Emerald City having a makeover for, like, a long time. And, like,
It's like a song number too, isn't it?
Scrub
Like, this
here,
is how we do it in
scrub
Oz.
there.
yeah.
I like that they have it ready, like they have a room ready for grooming a scarecrow, a tin man, a Dorothy, and a lion.
That's how Oz is. They're
They
ready.
just have a
They're
room ready
inclusive.
for it.
I mean, that's like the dream logic kind of stuff that lends to like this specific version's interpretation of this being a dream of Dorothy's, which is not in the books. That was never an implication in the books. So it's things like that kind of add to like the dream reality of this, and other nonsensical things like the witch's crystal ball turning into Auntie Em, and then like the witch like tormenting her with that. Like that's like just something in a dream just because Dorothy's at her lowest point.
Has the dream thing permeated the Wizard of Oz so much that the books are like almost ruined by it?
Yes.
Because like even the other adaptations of the Wizard of Oz, like the Return of Oz, it's still referenced that it's like maybe a dream, like we don't know, and it's like this isn't even in the books at all, right?
No. In fact, in the last book, literally, Ozma helps Dorothy uproot her family and her farmhouse to Oz so that Ozma and Dorothy can be lesbian best buds.
Sick.
Yeah.
It literally is it. The only one allowed in Ozma's bedchambers was Dorothy. What am I supposed to interpret by that? What do you think that's supposed to mean?
Jess, there is no interpretation. It's explicit.
I mean,
And also at that point, the author like didn't care. Like he wanted to stop writing Wizard of Oz, but kids kept literally sending him mail, being like, "Please write more, please! Like I gotta know what happened to Dorothy." And finally, he was like, "Okay, great." And he just like penned a bunch more stories, literally just because kids kept asking him to. So,
but it's also important to note that while this is the most ubiquitous, most popular, and most well-loved version of this is not the first film adaptation of the Wizard of Oz stories at all. This is like the 30th film adaptation of the Wizard of Oz stories. Frank Baum directed a good majority of them. They were a bunch of silent films. They are insanely pants crazy. Like they are horrifying nightmare fuel more often than not, but they are
that's
accurate to the books.
fantastic.
Like, so he created an entire production company all about his Oz stories that he would direct and produce and create. And instead of like an MGM lion or something like that, it's just the terrifying face of Ozma staring up at you. And that is, it's like, okay, it was Frank Baum Productions. And I'm like,
How many of these have you
at all.
seen, Jess?
I've seen like 10 of them because I think on one version of the DVD release they had a good chunk of them, and they as just bonus features. And I watched through them all, and I'm like, oh my god, this is nightmare fuel. I don't like this at all. Like the creepy Tin Man costumes that are just off kilter. Bree, if you can look up some of these just so you can see some like what these look like, because they are not good to look at. And then this one's like, all right, we got to make these cute. Everything needs to be as cute as possible.
Oh, right. Yeah. It also became popular, I think, because it was a stage play that would travel,
Yes.
for kids, and that's how kids really, like learned about the story and yada yada. Which I'm sure also those costumes were scary.
Yeah, but the year before this
Kids
movie
love
was
scary costumes, though.
They do though. Like look at the banana splits
Chuck
or
E.
like
Cheese.
Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yes.
The kids love scary costumes.
Yes. Yeah.
Pull up any of these demon images. I hate them. Like that's one that he directed himself. Like
It's a delight.
it is a bizarre delight
apparently.
according to Tristan Ethanson or whoever wrote that. I want to see what. There we
no.
are.
Yeah. Yes. That's it.
What is
That's
the
the
the one next to the Tin Man there?
That's a scarecrow.
Is that the Slenderman?
Slenderman.
Like these are not fun to look at, like cutesy animals. Except there it is, the Ozma image, like 3 to the right. I don't like any of this.
That one there?
Yeah, I think that's the one. No, any of these are like the Ozma image used to promote it, like the MGM line for Frank Baum's one.
Oh my
Just
goodness.
stares right into your soul. All right.
Oh my god.
Well, that's phenomenal. That's really great. I love that the one not directed by the writer of the books series is the one that gets really popular.
I mean, yeah, but a year before this movie came out, L. Frank Baum has been like dead for a good chunk of time. Of course, they're gonna throw that one.
Muppets.
It had already sold 10 million copies, like the original publishing of The Wizard of Oz. So this was like a massive hit, but not a financial hit. Like Baum did not like really make the big monies. Probably would have if he lived long enough for this movie to come out, but you know.
Yeah, really,
Hey, his work lives on forever. But you know what? I think we've talked long enough about like what we think right now. It's time to compare our thoughts to the critics when this film first came out. It's time for our favorite segment of the show. It's time for a preview.
It's time for previews. It's time for previews.
By Russell Maloney of The New Yorker in 1939. That was 82 years ago.
It's coming up on like literally it's 18 years away from 100 years ago. Think about that.
Yeah.
Whoa, that is wild.
Fantasy is still Walt Disney's undisputed domain. Nobody else can tell a fairy tale with his clarity of imagination, his simple good taste, or his technical ingenuity. This was forcibly born in on me as I sat cringing before MGM's Technicolor production of The Wizard of Oz, which displays no grace of imagination, good taste, or ingenuity. I will rest my case against The Wizard of Oz on one line of dialogue. It occurs in a scene in which the Wicked Witch is trying to persuade Dorothy, the little girl from Kansas, to part with a pair of magic slippers. The Good Witch interrupts them, warning Dorothy not to give up the slippers, whereupon the Wicked Witch snarls, "You keep out of this." Well, there it is. Either you believe witches talk like that, or you don't. I don't. Since The Wizard of Oz is full of stuff as bad as that, or worse, I say it's a stinkeroo. What? Stinkeroo! I grant this one stinkeroo.
Well, there it is. Either you believe witches talk like that or you don't. I don't.
Review, guys.
I don't.
That's what it was. A review in 1939. I apologize to Ben Brantley. I think I have to apologize to the Cardigan girl.
Oh my goodness.
Because he doesn't believe witches talk like that. You got a witch shamer?
Witches don't say you keep out of this.
You keep out of it.
Okay, what would the witch say?
What does he expect a witch to say?
You and your little dog, too, did not like that line.
That's not how witches talk.
Witches love
Nuh-uh.
dogs, canonically, and everyone knows that. So, not realistic, duh.
Hypothetically.
Hypothetically.
Let's say hypothetically, you have a movie with witches in it, and they say a line that I don't think they say. Well, it's obviously a stinkeroo.
It's obviously a stinkeroo. And also, like, thinking of, like, Snow White's witch, like, not that different from the witch in, like, I don't really know what
Does
he's
the witch
parsing
in
out
Snow
there.
White even say any lines? Doesn't she just go, ah?
Yeah, basically.
Okay, can I read some more experts from this really quick? Because I've got, like,
Yes.
he's like roasting everyone. He's like, Bert
Can we
Lahr
get
as a
this-
cowardly lion
this
is
guy-
funny, but out of place. If Bert Lahr belongs in the land of Oz, so does Mae West. What the fuck does that even mean? This is nothing against Lahr or Miss West, both of whom I dearly love. I don't like the singer midgets under any circumstances, but I found them especially bothersome in Technicolor.
Oh my god! You
He
can't
was
say that.
waving their terrible flags in the air as they...
Okay. So, can we put this whole review on, like, poorly aged things or something?
Yeah, someone find that and be like,
no.
So do we agree with that review from 1939?
Oh, I mean, yeah, I think he makes a lot of really good points.
So many good points.
Witches don't talk that way.
Yeah, witches don't talk like that.
We need to
It's
sell
so
a
funny
shirt
that-
that says witches don't talk like that.
Which doesn't Stinkaroo.
Either you believe witches talk like that, or you don't. I don't.
I don't.
Maggie, what do you think?
It's so funny to have that be like your recorded for history, like your recorded opinion on Wizard of Oz.
This might be the most famous thing he's ever done. Like, maybe the only thing he's known for is that he wrote a negative review of one of the most beloved movies of all time.
Walt Disney, though, he's got this fairy tale stuff in the bag.
Oh, yeah. Ooh. Oh, man.
I think now we need to go into a mid-show interruption. Hey guys, sorry to interrupt you in the middle of the show, but we've got a shill at you. Today's show is brought to you by the extremely kind donations by our donors over at Patreon. Andrew, tell us about Patreon and who's supporting us over there.
Oh boy, Patreon is the thing where everyone donates to everyone that they like. Wowee. You
Wowee.
can donate to us also. We have what are we doing now? The Gallivant podcast.
Yep.
We have a big backlog of commentaries and all sorts of other
Video
things.
episodes every week. You can see Maggie's beautiful face right now if you were on Patreon, but if you're not, you're stupid and no one likes you.
Man, I feel like you should get on Patreon and support these people just to see I'm giving a lot of facial
That's a big
reactions.
endorsement right there.
I mean,
We did not pay for that endorsement.
We did not. No. We are going to put it on
as far as you know.
all of our posters.
yeah. And then also under Stinkaroony.
Stinkaroo.
Stinkaroo.
You heard it here first. Maggie Mae Fish says you should be on our Patreon.
Or you are a Stinkaroo.
Yeah. Who's our current patrons who are not Stinkaroos?
Our current patrons are... Okay, give me a sec here. Terry Needleman, John Donna, Max Lunig, Lighten Ackles, Danielle Renix, Jess the Stampede, Ewan Cassidy, Tess Gear, Fire of September, Monica Thoreau, Mina Maniri, Brent Black, Haley Murray, Alice in Wonderland, B-Way Flicks, Nathaniel Stacy Coombe, Joseph Evans Green, Carrie Ahern, Irigale Drew A. Whiter, Christine Malmadel, Cole Birchfield, Mary Lou Choquette, John Vanels, Heck You, I Go By Elijah Now, Russ Walker, Musical Hell, Emily Gracie, Tablam, Kyle Summers, Janae C., Christine Francis, Felice A., Liz Lim, Corey Wilmarth, Allison Stuller, Nothing Is Certain Except Beth and Taxes, Elizabeth, John Vanels, Thespian, Ren Cullen, Wait in the Wings, Lady Malvolia, Spectacle Machine, Jacob Stroop, Robert Benjamin, Rachel T., Jessica Tubis, Genevieve Hartnett, Cass, Just Cass, Michelle Young, Chai Teacup, Hayden Wilder, Katie McDonough, Genki Geist, Stakas, and Timothy Keys.
And if you want to have your name butchered on our show, just come join us over on Patreon. These folks give us a little extra financial support that helps us keep the lights on. So come on and join us. Maggie supports it fully. Yeah, you can see her face. She's nodding right now.
Yes, I am nodding. And not because I'm being held here against my will. And
absolutely
none of those reasons. No.
We wouldn't have that power anyways. There's no way we could use
We're
guns
withholding
to
the ruby slippers until she says these things. Yeah, so she can go home. Keep it with the theme. All right, let's get back to the show. All right. So we're going to dive into some songs right now, and the best part is, like, every one of these songs is a bop, and a lot of them repeat. So let's just dive into the iconic one, which is strangely the I Want song and the opening number, which is Over the Rainbow.
Over the rainbow, bluebirds fly, birds fly over the rainbow. Why then, oh why can't I?
Maggie, was the first time you heard this song in the movie, in the context of the movie, or did you hear it somewhere before that?
I think I did, which I don't think I would not be surprised that a lot of people don't have that experience. Heard the song and was like, oh, it's from this movie, like Andrew here. But yeah, but yeah, the first time it was within context of the movie. Yeah, and I actually didn't hear any renditions of it until I think much later in life when I heard other people singing it or other versions. There might have been a Doris Day version of her singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow. My mother also loved Doris Day, so I do remember that, but I think those are the only two. Yeah.
I mean, that's fair. It's a very interesting way. Like, this is brilliant songwriting for one. Like, you think like Kansas gray skies, and the only color she really got is to see the rainbow, and then the change to Technicolor, which also I don't even think had been decided yet when the song was written. So that was such a good general idea for like that transition, setting it up, and it works on like 9 different levels. And on the final chant like side of it, it's just an overall good song with like a good emotional core. And the reason why they were gonna cut it is because they thought it slowed the opening down, which no, and they thought it was too degrading for an MGM star like Judy Garland to be singing in a barn.
No,
That was the
really?
exact phrasing.
Oh, that's.
Oh,
no.
no.
Imagine if the first song in the show had been "Ding Dong the Witch's Dead."
That entire
Imagine, yeah, whoa.
like
You'd be like, what?
there can be an argument like you only sing in Oz. Like I could see a producer making that argument, but also like that's not a good way to open a movie. You need to figure out what she wants in a way that isn't like, oh, Toto, I just want to go and see the world. Her emotions need to sing in that moment. Like, and that is what makes this a musical and not just a movie with songs, is this song.
That song is so emotional. Like, anyone who sings it afterward, that idea of just like, one day I will be somewhere that I'm not, is so human and so like universal that it's been applied to so many people and situations. And yeah, it's a very emotional song, which is funny because most of the movie, you know, as we have pointed out, is like very silly.
Yes.
And yeah, like a lot of the day it's very, this is the one of the true moments where it actually like feels like, oh man, like this woman needs to get out of here. Like it feels very a very emotional part of the movie.
Yeah.
And also, this is Judy Garland's song. Like, no one else really can sing this in the same way as Judy Garland. And I mean that into, like, even her, like, less fortunate times of her life. Like, she nailed this song every time, and she knew she could nail this song every time. I've seen, like, videos of her, like, where it's almost, like, destroying her to sing this song, but she knows that's the way to get an audience applause. And I didn't much like the movie Judy with Renee Zellweger, but my God, when you just see her do that impression at the end, and that's how they do it, you can't help but feel emotional. There's some magic in these words and lyrics. And just hearing about how the songwriter, this is the last song he had to write for this movie. It was the only one that's like, I know where it needs to go, I just don't know what to do. And then he's like, I had the worst heartburn I ever had, and I had my wife drive me to the drugstore, told her to go in and get me the meds, and I sat there, pulled up a cocktail napkin, I'm like, I wrote down what would become Somewhere Over the Rainbow. I didn't have the lyrics, I just wrote like the tune.
Wow.
And that is the man that decided like the rest of like film history and like musical theater structure and all that. Wrote it outside a drugstore while having really bad stomach pain.
Man, do we have that napkin?
Yeah, does someone have that somewhere where it's literally like low note, high note, like all that?
Yeah.
Literally, that's
my
it.
heart. Just like,
Oh, what if we did an octave? No one does an octave. Let's do that.
Ba, 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 da, 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 da. Then go down. Where's my medicine?
Where's my meds?
There's like a little rainbow icon near the like pharmacy like sign.
That would be the biopic version of it, like rainbows.
Yeah.
The anti-Judy film would be him in his car writing this out.
You have to keep it real. He was in his car, stomach ulcer, just wrote like a few lines.
Yeah.
No magic to this at all. Just a man on a mission.
Doing his job at the last moment possible with heartburn.
I relate.
Yeah.
Classic. Instant classic, though.
Instant classic. You can't change that. Like that song written outside a drugstore. Like magic. All right, so let's just go into the Witch is Dead sequence, which is like 9 songs in one, but like basically it's Ding Dong the Witch is Dead and Come Out, Come Out. And this is also storytelling in song. Fight me this. This isn't a vaudeville number. This is storytelling, explaining what happened, explaining the world, and all that.
Wake up, you sleepyhead, wrap your eyes, get out of bed. Wake up, the wicked witch is there. She's coming where the goblins go. Below, below, yo-ho. Rise up and laugh and sing, and ring the bell now, ding dong, the merry-o. Sing it high, sing it low, let them know the wicked witch is there.
I love that the first thing that happens in Oz in this wonderful, colorful world is someone dies and everyone celebrates.
I know.
Horrible murder.
It is one of the things that, like, because, like we mentioned, the actual book, like, is dark.
Yeah.
You know, so it is one of the things that's like, oh, it's really creepy that everyone's like happy singing when someone just died, and like, yeah, especially when you're older, your brain kind of like does kind of fills in a lot of the blanks that it's
I
like,
mean,
huh, yeah, that's
you know,
really...
if she was as terrible as they say, maybe it was deserved.
yeah, that's
But I have seen Wicked, so.
Yeah, she was like a paraplegic that got crushed. And
yeah.
by a woman teacher, her former teacher, that just wanted to like lure in a green woman. You know, the classic story. We all have to sing about her death. Wicked's kind of fucked up if you think about what actually happens in The Wizard of Oz.
Oh yeah, it's yeah, yes.
Oh god, but I like the part especially. Like when just the random munchkins just start introducing themselves, like I'm coroner, I've stopped her, I've thoroughly, and like the Lollipop Guild and like the Lullaby League, like these different unions in Munchkinland, like, hey, thanks for the murder, good job.
Yeah.
It's a liberation. It wasn't a murder.
It was a coup. Excuse me.
Yeah,
it was a coup.
It was a coup for the working class. So, you know, like,
Yeah,
go
the
Judy.
working class.
Yeah, sadly we forgot about her
mayor guy
family
looked
members.
working
We
class.
forgot about, Don Jr., who was just gonna come and be like, who killed him?
Yeah, all right.
Where's his shoes? I want them.
My mother has a particular love of the Lollipop Gang just because that almost comes out of nowhere, and then it's the Lollipop Gang, and it's like last year I bought her a vintage Lollipop Gang member Christmas ornament that is so old that it's one of those like very hideous, like very ugly, very like disturbing ornaments, and she loves it. So.
I mean, who's your favorite Munchkin? Because there's like so many variations, and everyone has to have like the one they like the most.
There's a lot of good ones.
Are the people in Emerald City Munchkins, or are they different?
No, Emerald City is not Munchkin. Munchkins are specifically regulated to Munchkin Land.
Yeah.
If you don't live in Munchkin Land, you're not a Munchkin.
Yes.
Right, because you're a citizen of Oz. There's
It's like
there's a divide.
like being a part of Georgia, you're still in the United States, but you're in Georgia if you're in Georgia.
Okay. I like the one who's very like, he almost looks like he's upset about the murder in a way, because he's like, are we sure? Are we positive she's dead? You know,
That one.
Very
Morally, ethically, really and truly dead. Mine is the coroner who's just like, yeah, I looked all over her body. I got this like certificate of death. She dead.
yeah.
He's
Porter,
the
what
king
did you look
Munchkin.
at? It's just her feet.
No pulse in the ankle, I'll tell you that.
No pulse on the ankle. She's dead.
I thoroughly examined her. What about you, Maggie?
Oh, there are so many. There's three little, the ballet dancer.
Yes.
The Lullaby League, yes.
Yeah.
I always liked them. I do have a soft spot in my heart for the Lollipop Gang, as I've explained, but that's mostly because of my mom. But yeah, the Lollipop Gang, or the Lullaby Gang is like, yeah, you girls. Yeah, what is their job? We don't know, and they don't really explain it, but...
What is the Lollipop
produce
Guild's
lollipops.
job? Like, whose union?
Yeah,
Lollipop Guild's
Lollipop.
job is obvious, Jess. They make lollipops.
Do they, or
My
they give
God.
lollipops?
They do
Right.
both. That's their job.
Because it looks like lollipops grow out of the ground. Are they lollipop farmers?
Importing and exporting of lollipops.
Import, export, lollipops, so I don't understand what the confusion is.
All right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to mix, like, the three If I Only Had a songs into, like, one topic. So Like, this is If I
They're all
Only Had
kind of the same song.
They are, but they are very different. They have very distinct sounds to them. I could tell one apart from the other. They have like slightly different time signatures, slightly different tempos. They are different in their own way, in ways that you wouldn't see like nowadays, where they're like, oh, fucking
It's
make it a whole
amazing
song.
how much of this movie is just one song followed by We're Off to See the Wizard, and then the same song followed by We're Off to See the Wizard.
I've got I've got a couple.
I
hot
could
takes
while
to come,
away
don't
the
worry.
hours, conferring with the flowers, consulting with the rain. And my head I'd be scratching while my thoughts were busy hatching if I only had a brain. When a man's an empty kettle, he should be on his mettle, and yet I'm torn apart. Just because I'm presuming that I could be kinda human if I only had a heart.
Yeah, it's sad, believe me, missy, when you're born to be a sissy without the vim and vibe. But I could show my prowess, be a lion, not a mouse, if I only had the nerve. I'm afraid there's no denying I'm just a dandelion, a fate I don't deserve.
All of these songs I think are great, and I love how distinct they are from one another, despite having the same thing. Like the Tin Man's like little like tick-tock noise, like ba-dum, bum, 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 ba-dum. Like, that makes it feel lumbering. My only complaint is the Lion doesn't have his own like full version of it, which you didn't get into like the concert version with Nathan Lane that Bree's gonna play a clip of right now, which will have the full song where Nathan Lane's like, "I won't be scared of rabbits" and all that, which was like 3 extra verses.
Life
It's great.
is sad, believe me, missy, when you're born to be a sissy without the vim and vibe. But I could change my habits, never more be scared of rabbits if I only had the night. I'm afraid there's no denying I'm just a dandelion, a fate I don't deserve. But I could show my prowess, be a lion, not a mouse, if I only had the night.
I feel like the Lion got ripped off. Of course, he has another pointless song later, but like as of this, like, why did Tin Man and the Scarecrow get full songs?
I do remember as a kid, because as a kid, and especially when you're a young kid, you're very much into okay, numbers and trying to figure out patterns of the world that everyone seems to know. So especially as a young child, you're like, wait, he didn't get a full song? What? And you're like, it trips you up.
He gets the full song later, though.
Yeah, that
because-
was actually my argument when I was watching it really young with not my parents, because my parents didn't really chill with me and watch movies when I was a kid. It was my babysitter. And I'd be like, why didn't he get the full version? She's like, yeah, it got made up. Like he wanted the song in the end, so he had to replace it there. And she just made up that fun movie fact.
And that's fun.
Easy movie facts.
Yeah.
Just say whatever, you know.
It's like my mom, this is the
factoids.
first black and white or color movie.
Well,
not,
the only fun fact my mom gave me was this, where she was like, I watched this as a kid on my black and white TV. I had no idea it went to color.
Oh, that's really funny.
Oh no!
That's really funny. That's funny.
I was
Movie
like,
ruined.
yeah, I think that's hilarious. She's like, it changed the entire world of Oz for me, to be honest. All right, let's talk briefly about a song that I really love, and I feel like no one gives it the respect it deserves, and that's Optimistic Voices, which is like 5-10 seconds long as they're walking over the poppy field.
Out of the night, step into the sun, step into the light. Keep straight ahead for the most glorious place on the face of the earth or the sky. Hold on to your breath, hold on to your heart, hold on to your hope. March up to the gate and bid it open.
What do you have to say about this?
It's nothing to say. It's just a weird, like, I feel like they were like, we need music here. We can't just pull out, like, stuff from, like, other classical pieces. Well, get the MGM singers in here and we'll just spit something out there about being happy. We're out of the woods, we're out of the life, we're out of the... Like,
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah,
it's such a weird
it's like a
anomaly.
transition song. It is. And also, it does stick in your memory, and you do think that it happens more, or you think it happens more often than it does when it's really only that.
Like, small interstitial between, like, the poppy field and Emerald City doors. But it reminds me of, like, the Disney films where they had, like, the men's choir, like, the second start, and it just sounds, like, daunting, but it's, like, these shrill, likely very old women just screaming about how life is great for a minute before we go into the next scene. I love this because it's just so weird. I feel like I was the only one that had anything to say about that, aside from the fact, like, why is this here? And then we have the last song of the show, really, because I don't think we already covered the Merry Old Land of Oz. We don't. It's weird they get a makeover, you know. But if I were King of the Forest, is the last song of the movie.
Or king of the forest, not queen, not duke, not prince. My regal robes of the forest would be satin, and not a cotton, and not chintz.
It's like they wrote half of a musical and then they just stopped.
Yeah.
They're just like, I'm done.
Like, they had a chance for, like, a reprise of Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead. They filmed it, and it was, like, the Winkies or whatever singing it about, like, the Wicked Witch of the West, and they are like, just dissolve back to the wizard.
Yeah, we just need it to end.
Yeah, we
The
don't need
movie's
to
gotta
wrap
end.
it up. Whatever. Yeah.
The wizard himself never gets a song at all. Dorothy never gets another song.
I mean, but the lion needed 2.
Yeah,
or 1.5.
We had to finish it strong with a very, very pointless number about how the lion wants to be king of the forest.
Yeah.
It's like he has his own movie going on after this one ends. Like, he's got his own musical that starts right there. That's the start of his story.
I kind of get the feeling that the people who made the movie really liked the lion more than any other character.
Well, Burt Lahr was, like, the biggest actor among them, technically.
Is that what it was? Okay.
That makes
'Cause-
sense.
Like, listen to
felt
that
like-
reviewer. He's like, I love Burt Lahr. I'll always love Burt Lahr, but he's misused in this movie.
Well, like, once he's added in, it's like he gets more screen time than anybody else, and it just keeps going to him, and there's so much conflict with, like, is he gonna help Dorothy or not? Like, is he gonna get the courage to help? And it's all focused on the lion. And then
Well, it can't be about the girl. What are you, dense?
it's gotta be about the lion. He's the big name.
Yeah.
He's the big guy.
Lion, masculine, alpha lion, beta girl. Come on.
Yeah, like, there's so much there about because, like, he wants to be king, and, like, he could be, but, like,
Is that
you know,
that Zack
He's
Snyder?
not
Is
strong
he on our
enough.
podcast? And the female, the lion, it really isn't. The female's there. I was gonna actually write in a subplot, where the lion got with Dorothy for a bit, but then realized, like, the Tin Man had a thing for her, and...
I didn't want to interrupt that. You can pick it up on, if you watch it, you can, like, see it.
Zack Snyder's Wizard of Oz. I can't.
Oh, God.
I don't want to.
That's Sucker Punch. What are
The
you
whole
talking
thing
about?
is in black and white. No, it's in color, and then they get to Oz, and it goes to black and white.
4x3. Wait, the movie's already in 4x3. Shit!
Okay, then IMAX. Yeah, spins a wheel.
All right. We gotta
Ben
get some
Affleck
Jesus,
as
imagery
Dorothy.
for the lion.
Of course the lion is Jesus. He gave up everything.
Yeah. And the Tin Man is Jesus, and, like,
And Dorothy's
three
Jesus,
Jesuses.
and the Wizard of Oz is Jesus.
The lion sees the Tin Man and asks, "Do you bleed?" Well, you will. Ruff, ruff.
All right, end me.
All right. The last thing I want to do as an honorable mention is the Jitterbug, which is just an insane song that has been brought on for the stage adaptation and, like, the Tom and Jerry movie version, like, where there's just, like, Tom and Jerry, Rosencrantz Guildenstern, the Wizard of Oz, which is a choice. But the song is catchy. It just doesn't.
Hiding in the treetops, it's that rascal, the jitterbug. Should you catch him buzzing round you, keep keep away from the jitterbug. Oh, the bats and the bees and the breeze and the trees have a terrible, horrible buzz. But the bats and the bees and the breeze and the trees couldn't do what the jitterbug does. So be careful of that rascal. Keep away from
The jitterbug. Oh, the jitter. Oh, the bug. Oh, the jitter.
It almost seems like, I don't really know if it is, but it seems like a holdover of it turning over so many hands.
Yes.
That things like that just kind of get like, and like who even knows who decided to film it? Yeah. Just...
Well, I'm glad Tom and Jerry got to debut it. So.
I mean, yeah, but I do like it when it's in the stage version because it does give like a smaller role to like someone that usually plays ensemble to come up and have a solo, and they sing like, "I'm the jitterbug, I'm gonna mess with you guys, and I'm coming here, and I get a solo, and I'm gonna dance."
So, did they write more songs for the stage one? Because did they really end it with no songs?
Yeah, they probably added a few more reprises. I'm sure there was a reprise of Somewhere Over the Rainbow shot for this film when she's locked up in the witch's room. But they thought it was too depressing because like I've heard footage of it, and she's like sobbing through every line, and it's like
Judy. Yeah. Ooh.
it is a really like hard to watch, listen to performance, and I get why they cut it, especially when we're gonna cut to like our three friends defeating like the other people and stealing their outfits outside, and she's just like, "I'm gonna die. My dog's escaped. I'm gonna die, Annie M." Yeah, so I get why they cut that, and then they had the reprise of Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead, and then at that point, there's not really much room for a song. Like, I don't think they'd give like Frank, the wizard, a song there. It makes sense. I feel like just at the end, they just sing, "We're off to see the wizard again," and we'd all be happy. We're leaving the audience happy.
Yeah.
Yeah. On that note,
Yeah.
What are our overall thoughts on The Wizard of Oz 3 hours later? And our cheese rating. Andrew, why don't you go first since this is your Wizard of Oz cherry popping?
Okay. I thought it was really good. I mean, kind of what I expected, and it was good. We didn't really talk about it, but there's a lot of really, really good dancing.
Yeah.
I guess everyone already kind of knows that, though, but a lot of the dancing is phenomenal, and yeah, especially considering the costumes and everything they were in. Let's see. Man, a cheese rating. I Googled witch cheese just to see if there was anything, and I found red witch cheese, so I'm gonna go with that, even though she's green. Can I just change it green witch cheese? I'm just gonna change it to that. I don't even know if that's a thing, but I'm changing it to that, so that's the cheese rating I'm going to give it.
You know what? That's a very good one. I support your belief. All right, Maggie, you're up next. Your overall thoughts on The Wizard of Oz and your cheese rating.
Overall thoughts. Yeah, I want to go back to what you said earlier, Jess, about how with each generation it seems like this same movie brings up different topics of conversation. And so yeah, it'll probably keep doing that just because it's so ubiquitous in culture. Yeah, like Andrew knew the whole movie before seeing it, and that's kind of like, yeah, everyone knows the story of the Wizard of Oz, and watching it, you're not really surprised by anything. But yeah, there's a reason it sticks around, and especially with kids, having strong characters like that is such like a grab, you know, like when you're a kid, you'll remember one of those characters and feel really attached to them, which is something that, yeah, I think is a good lesson for anyone who's writing content for kids. As far as cheese rating, I think I want to go with something like mozzarella. It's so classic. It's in so many things. And it's so pervasive throughout culture. And exactly what you'd expect.
Yeah.
But a classic, an undeniable classic. And there are many things that you can't make without that ingredient. And there are a lot of pieces of art that we enjoy today that wouldn't be here without The Wizard of Oz coming first. So,
damn, Andrew, why can't you be that insightful with your cheese rating? Shit.
Are you kidding me? I'm jealous of the guests. They can pick all the easy cheeses. If I picked mozzarella, I would
People
get
would be
hate
like-
on Twitter. They'd be like, I can't believe you're that lazy.
Honestly-
You already used mozzarella 5 times.
You're right. Now we actually have an ongoing list. Like there was a period where you just put like American for like 4 in a row, and I didn't pick up on it until I saw it written down. I'm like, the fuck is that shit?
There's so many cheeses.
Bree, what did you think of our discussion and your cheese rating on that?
This was a very fun discussion, and I feel like I learned a lot about like a classic film that I haven't seen in a really long time. So it was very entertaining and very fun, and as always hilarious. I think I'm going to give it a throwback childhood snack, which was Handy Snacks Premium Breadsticks and Cheese Dip.
Ooh.
You guys remember those?
I do.
I do. I remember the taste.
I can crack my tooth on it right now. I feel like that right now.
I loved those. I don't know why, but I loved them. So that is my
Heart
cheese
is
rating. Yeah.
That's a good one. That's a really good one. Juliet, put like a little emoji next to Maggie and Brianna's like thumbs up emoji. Do that. All right, so I guess it's my turn. The Wizard of Oz is a classic, undisputed. I love it so much, and I just have this stupid amount of information about it in the back of my head, and I was very grateful that Maggie gave me the chance to like spit it out here for the world, and for her joining us, and for Andrew to finally pop his Wizard of Oz cherry. This was a lot of fun, and I got to like really laugh a lot. I haven't laughed this much in an episode since our Peter Pan one. This has been a ton of fun, and we got to be positive while laughing, which is so rare. Like a lot of our show is cynicism lately, and I'm glad we were positive and got to make some wisecracks. As for a cheese rating, I am going to give it this Yellow Brick Road cheese that you can do at
Are you kidding
parties.
me? Whoa! My mother would love this. I'm sending this to her after this.
Which is just perfect. But that does raise the question. On the Yellow Brick Road, there is also that Red Brick Road. Where does that one go?
I thought we found out in that other Return to Oz, didn't we?
No. She followed the Yellow Brick Road there. Remember, it was all broke up.
She did.
God, did you even watch that movie, Andrew?
I mean, I did. It was a while ago.
You can watch it.
The Red Brick Road, it goes straight to Dorothy's house. She could have just followed that. It was like 3 miles away.
Yeah.
Cancer.
And there's like pairs of red ruby slippers every few feet, just lining the. And she could have picked
Everywhere.
up
I mean,
any
of
of
them.
them, but
in Return to Oz, we see there's like lunch pail trees. Those ruby slipper trees. Everyone can get some, Just pull it off the tree. Maggie.
Just don't tell the witch that.
Thank you for joining us. You are wonderful. Not that anyone doesn't know where to find you, but promote your stuff right now and let them know where they can find you.
guys, this was so fun. Thank you for letting me talk about Wizard of Oz and my mother. Yeah, if you want to find me, I'm on Twitter. Just my name, Maggie Mae Fish, MAE, not MAY, like the month. And then my name as well on YouTube, where you can see some of my video essays about movies. So, and some of them which are musicals. I did do an episode on Cats, which you referred to earlier.
Yes.
So
She dressed as a cat. It was
sort
great.
of musical of musicals.
I did. Mm-hmm. Yes.
I'm so glad I never have to think about cats ever again. Like, cause
It's
we do.
bliss.
for like 10 years, everyone was like, "What is Cats? What is Cats?" I'm like, it doesn't matter. And now the movie's out, and everyone gets what Cats is and why it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
So thankfully, by this time next year, no one's gonna give a shit about Cats. It's great.
No one is ever going to stop talking about Cats because it's awful, okay? The movie was so bad, it's going to live forever.
I
like
don't
The
think so.
Room
I
or
really don't think
something
so.
like that.
I'm gonna put my bet on like it will be
We
like
can hope.
funny for a year, and then everyone's gonna get over it.
I will say I have seen both, and I have both the unfixed VFX version and the fixed VFX version, and I think if the unfixed one has like that's the one I think deserves an underground like
I don't
following.
remember which one I saw in theaters. I
You
don't
saw
remember
it
if I
on
went-
Christmas Eve, so you saw it before the change.
Oh, so I got to see the better version.
Yes, and
And by better, I mean worse.
I saw it drunk on the night it opened, and that I was so drunk that I came home and I was like, "There's no way I saw what I saw," so I had to go and see it like 2 days later to make sure I saw what I saw. And damn it, I was not as drunk as I thought.
I cannot believe I saw that on Christmas Eve. Jess, I hate you. I ruined a Christmas Eve to watch that movie in theaters by myself. No one even went to see it with me.
Whoa.
You did it for the podcast. You did it for the people, not for me.
I know. Fuck all you people.
I know.
Speaking of, fuck all you people for listening to our show. Please follow us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher at Musicals with Cheese. Also, feel free to follow us on Twitter at Cheesy Musicals, Patreon Musicals with Cheese, Instagram Musicals with Cheese, YouTube page Musicals with Cheese. On Patreon, we're covering Galvant on Patreon with Cheese. It's a lot of fun there. Shoot us an email at musicaltheaterlives@gmail.com. Our transcriptions are done by Masha Litvinova. We love you so much, Masha. Thank you for doing that with us. Our title card is created by Jolene Casco. Follow her on Instagram at Jolene Casco. Our keeper of the cheese is Juliet Antonio. Thank you for doing that because God knows I wasn't going to do it. This show is produced by the incredible, the funny, the best person I've ever met, Brianna Jones. We love you, Bri. You're so great, and I love you to death. Thank you to the Broadway Podcast Network for having us on the platform and for not taking us to the firing squad yet. We know it's going to happen one day. It's just that it's going to happen, but it hasn't happened yet, so we're appreciative. The best part is we had like the guy that run and we still made those jokes. Like he came on the show and we just kept making jokes about how we're going to get kicked off.
He was like, but then taking notes.
He's never going to kick us off.
No, he's never going to kick us
loves
off. We're the best. Maggie, is there anything else you want to say before we wrap this up?
Man, there's no place like home. So I'll leave you all with that.
You know what? That is the best we can end this with. Thank you for joining us, Maggie. And we will see you guys next time. You're out of the woods, you're out of the dark, you're out of the night. Step into the sun,
Really,
step
he ends
into
with
the
that one.
light.
Jitterbug.
Who's that hiding
Jitterbug.
in the treetop? It's that rascal, the jitterbug.
He actually knows it.
I do. It's a great song. Doesn't fit in the movie, but it's a
do-
good song.